Hello everyone, this is my second lesson about the topic SURDS. In the very first lesson, we just focused on the what is the meaning of SURDS, what is a SURD, and second, we discussed about the simplification, simplifying a given SURD. Now today we will be doing something. For example, we have a question. Let's say 6 square root of 75. In yesterday's lesson, we just focused on how to simplify square root of 75. In today's lesson, we would be having a question related to the multiplication in SURDS. So 6 square root 75, this actually means 6 is multiplied by 75. And the most important thing is we always write SURD part in the end and the simple number before the SURD. You can consider it like a variable, the SURD part, just for your understanding. Let's say we have 2x. So here this x is a variable. So x variable is written in the end and the numbers, the constant values are written before that. So here we have SURD. If I say SURD is like a variable, just for your understanding, then number will be written before the SURD. We will never write 75 and then 6. No, this is not correct way to write. Okay. Now the thing is we have to write it in the most simplified form. So here 6 is multiplied by 75 square root. Now 6 is a simple number. We cannot make any changes to this. But if we look at this 75 square root, there is a chance we can simplify it. So again, we have two methods. So I'm going to focus on the first method where I will be writing the square numbers up to, let's say, 100. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49. Then we have 64, 81 and 100. I can see that 75, it is a multiple of 25. So 75 square root can be written as 25 times 3 square root. And here I can see that it will be written as 25 square root times by square root of 3. Whenever there is a multiplication or division, you can split this square root sign. So you can write it square root 25 times square root of 3. Now this will be square root of 25, as 25 is a perfect square number. So we can write it 5 here and square root of 3. Now the thing is, actual question was 6 square root of 75, which I told you the meaning if this thing is 6 times square root of 75, and that is equals to 6 times 5 root 3. And here I can multiply these two numbers which are without the third part. So 6 times 5 is 30. Then it will be 30 root 3. This is the first example. This is also a kind of simplification, or you can consider as a multiplication and simplification both. Now let's say we have another example here. And that example is something like, let's say we take another example, exactly the same kind. 3 square root of 40. This is a second example. So here again, this means it is 3 multiplied by square root of 40, which means that now we have to look for the square root of 40 because there is a chance we can simplify this. So again, I write 1, 4, 9, 16, and so on. Okay. I can see that 40 is a multiple of 4. So I write it like this way. 3 times square root of 4 times 10, which can be further written as 3 times square root of 4 times square root of 10, which means it is 3 times, now square root of 4 is 2 times square root of 10. So this will be 3 times 2, which is 6 square root of 10. Always remember, when you have two surds, the simple number without surd will be multiplied by without surd part and the surd parts will be multiplied together. Let's take one more example similar to this one. So next example is 3 square root of 48. Now again, this is equivalent to 3 times square root of 48. And then I will be writing the squared numbers. Now, because if you know the tables, you can easily identify that this square root 48 can be written as 16 times 3. From where it will be written as 3 times square root of 16 times square root of 3. The main thing is we just need to write this 48 as a multiple of any of these numbers so that we can use the squared, that perfect square part. So 3 times square root of 16 is 4 times 3, which is equal to 12 times 3. Sometimes if the students are not able to identify this 16 times 3 is 48, they can think of like 4 times something is also 48. So you can start in that way also. In that way, there might be a chance you need to do little bit more, 1 or 2 more steps, but you will be able to reach the answer. So for example, I don't know that 16 times 3 is 48, but I know that it is a this 48 is a multiple of 4 and 4 is also a perfect square. So I started with 3 times 4 times 12, and then I see this is 3 times square root of 4 times square root of 12, and then I can write it 3 times square root of 4 is 2 times square root of 12. And this will be equals to 6 square root of 12. But now I feel this square root of 12, I can further simplify. You wouldn't be able to recognize here, but we can recognize here that 12 can be further simplified. And again, 12 is a multiple of 4. So now I can do it 6 times square root of 4 times 3, which means it is 6 times square root of 4 times square root of 3, and that is 6 times square root of 4 is 2 times square root of 3, which is 12 square root of 3. The method which I am applying here, that is the first method which we discussed in our previous session of SURDS, definition and meaning and understanding. You can apply the another method also, factor tree and simplifying the SURDS. So this was the first thing where we are simplifying the SURDS which are in multiplication with some other number. Now we do the questions related to the multiplication of SURDS. The topic would be now multiplication of SURDS. So you are multiplying one SURD with another SURD or 2 SURDs or 3 SURDs. It can be up to any level. So for example, the first question, very simple. We have two simplified SURDs. Square root 3 and square root 5. These are the most simplified. We cannot further simplify. So just we can write them under one square root sign. We were doing the reverse of this in the previous questions. So this will be square root of 50. Now let's say I got another question. Square root of 2 times square root of 8. So here what you can do, same thing. You can write it under one square root sign and you got it square root 16. But make sure when you get your final answer, check if it is in the simplified form or not. Like square root 15, it was in the simplified form. Because if I write the squared numbers, I can see this is not a multiple of any one of these, like which can be written as a squared form product. But here 16 square root, we know this is 4. So the answer would be 4 rather than giving it as square root 16. Then next question comes. One more thing, the same question you can do in a second way also. It is up to you. So when I looked at this question, square root 2, I know this is a simplified form. But this square root 8 is not a simplified form. So if you want, you can write it like 4 square root 4 multiplied by 2. And then you can split it into two parts. So this will be square root of 4 times square root of 2. Which means it is square root of 2 times square root of 2. Again, I see that there are two parts with surds. So I can write them in multiplication 2 times 2 and 1 2 is outside. Now this is 2 times 2 which is 4. Square root of 4 times 2 and square root of 4 is what? 2. So 2 times 2 equal to 4. So whichever method is convenient for you, whatever you are able to identify in the beginning, you can do it that way. Okay, both the answers would be same. Let's do some more questions. For example, we have now 2 square root of 3 times by 2 square root of 5. In this question, we have two surds, and this 2 square root 3, basically its meaning is 2 times square root of 3. There is a multiplication then again 2 times square root of 5. So from here, I see these two are the non-surd parts, so I can multiply them together. And there are two surd parts. Even we can simplify them or not, we can just write them in a single square root sign, and I can write them down this way. So this is equals to 4 times square root of 15. And I see that 15 square root I cannot simplify further. So I can give answer like 4 square root of 15. Multiplication sign can be removed. Okay. Next, one more question. Square root of 18 times by 4 square root of 2. Again, in this case, we have square root 18 times, we can write it 4 square root 2 or 4 times square root 2. What I do, I know that I can simplify this square root 18, like because we have numbers 1, 5, 9, 16. So 18 is a multiple of 9. So either you do that way. So it will be square root of 9 times 2 and then times 4 times 2. So this will be square root of 9 times square root of 2 times 4 times square root of 2. Square root of 9 is 3 times square root of 2 times 4 times square root of 2. The non-surd part, which is 3 and 4, can be multiplied together, which makes 12. And then in the surd sign, we can write this square root 2 times square root 2. So it is 2 times 2. So this is going to be 12 square root of 4, which is 12 times 2, and that is equal to 24. This is the first way to do it. Now, second way, if I have to do the same question, what I can do is, I can first multiply these numbers. So we have square root of 18, this is the second method, times 4 square root 2. I can write it 4 times square root of 18 times 2. I kept the third part together, which is equivalent to 4 times square root of 36. And I know that square root 36 is equivalent to 6. So 4 times 6, which is 24. This is pretty simple, but it depends on the idea which can come to our mind while looking at the question. Both the methods are correct. There is no restriction that you have to go for this particular method. Okay, until and unless it is mentioned in the question that you have to go this way. Next questions are, for example, you have 3 square root of 5 and it's squared. Now we know that 2 squared means 2 times 2. A squared means A times A. Similarly, if we have 3 square root of 5 the whole square, that means it is 3 square root of 5 times by 3 square root of 5. And which means 3 times square root of 5 times 3 times square root of 5. Collect the non-surd parts. So 3 times 3 and collect the surd part together. Under one square root sign, we can keep 5 and 5. So 3 times 3 is 9 times by 5 times 5, so square root. So this is 9 times 5, which is 45. One last question related to the same. For example, we have 5 square root of 8 times 2 square root of 2. Again, here we have 5 times square root of 8 times 2 times square root of 2. So this is equivalent to 5 times 10, 2, which is 10, times square root of 8 times 2. We can keep the third part under one square root sign, which is 10 multiplied by square root of 16. And that is 10 times 4, which is equivalent to 40. So this way we can multiply two surds. Then comes a little advanced type of questions in SURDS multiplication. SURDS with one bracket for the multiplication. For example, we have square root of 2 times 3 plus square root of 2 in bracket. Here no sign is given, so that means it is a multiplication. And we know how to expand the single brackets. It will go this way. Square root 2 will be multiplied by 3. So that means it will be square root of 2 times 3. And then there is a plus, so plus, then square root of 2 will be multiplied by square root of 2. So square root 2 times square root 2. In a single bracket, whatever the number is written outside the bracket will be multiplied by each and every term inside the bracket. Here we have two terms. So there will be one term multiplication, then second term multiplication. If there is another term, so we will multiply with that also if it is inside the bracket. Now 3 times square root of 2, we know have to write the non-surd part before the surd, so it is 3 root 2. Then plus square root of 2 times square root of 2, which will be equivalent to 2. Now here we have different types of varieties, like the different types of answers. There might be a chance you get 2 like surds. So that will be discussed as a part of addition of 2 surds. Okay. So in this session, we are just focusing on multiplication of only like the simple 2 surds and 1 surd and another non-surd part, and then opening the brackets. But there might be a chance you get these 2 like terms, like the surd part is same, then we have to further add it. Now one more question, let's take square root of 2 plus 1 times square root of 2 minus 1. Now this is a 2 bracket question. 2 brackets, the expanding the brackets is the same concept we learned in algebra also. So it can be done in same way. So you can apply the FOIL method. That method you can do. Or what you can do here is, because this is a special kind of multiplication, it is of the form A plus B times A minus B. And this is always equals to A squared minus B squared. So that means this will be equal to, from this question, this would be equal to square root of 2 the whole square minus 1 the whole square. Now square and square root always cancel each other. So we got here 2 only. And square of 1 is 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So you can do expansion with 1 bracket or 2 brackets. In 2 brackets, in general, we apply the FOIL method. So that I will be explaining in my next lesson, in my upcoming lessons of algebra, where I will discuss this FOIL method for expanding the 2 brackets. And in this lesson, we just discuss about the multiplication and still further simplification of the surd part. Thank you.